Hello, everybody.
Hey guys.
Thanks for coming today. Just letting everybody into the room. Welcome to the quarterly wrap up. This is the first one of these that we'll do, but we will be doing them at the end of every quarter. And we will be featuring all of the new, wonderful, fun stuff that has been released over the last 3 months of that period. So thank you all for making it today. Um, so my name, for those who don't know me, is Annalise Chetchup or Annie. I am an onboarding person here in Australia, servicing the whole of Asia Pacific, and I've also got Darcy with me. And we will be presenting today's webinar. So please feel free throughout today, if you have any questions, to put them into the Q&A that you should see available to you underneath. So please put your questions through and we'll answer them throughout today's session as well as towards the end if we've got time. So if everybody's ready to go, let us kick off with our quarterly wrap up. So lots of exciting things happen in Q2 this year. We have quite a large complement of developers over in our headquarters in the UK, and they've been busy little bees this entire quarter, rolling out a lot of really, really cool stuff. And when I say really cool stuff, I mean that quite objectively. As somebody who used to have to write a lot of tenders in the past, and wasn't necessarily actually a formal bid writer. So, but there's a lot of things in here I think that can support people who are in the bid writing, proposal writing space, as well as beyond that space as well. So to give you a little bit of an overview over the next couple of minutes of all of the new features, and then I'm going to jump into a demonstration of all of these new features. First up, in Extract, we have the summarize capability that was introduced a few months ago. This is really the ability to summarize content. Unlike Extract, which was designed specifically to extract specific types of content from documents, particularly tender documents, Summarize is very much designed to just create summaries of documents, whatever the documents are. So that's one of the things that was introduced. Then this is a fairly new feature, Shred, came out about a month ago. This is very much about pulling out what we call obligations here in Australia, or compliance, you can think of them as well. So these are all the musts, shalls, wills, shoulds, as well as the must nots, shall nots, etc. That you pull from an actual, particularly tender documents, whether or not it's incoming tenders or it's post-submission pre-project tender documents that you've completed. And lastly, in Extract, lots of things happening in Extract is multiple file upload. So this might be very new to a lot of you because this was only introduced just about 2-3 weeks ago. So very exciting times now. You can now, because a lot of the time, particularly with government tenders, as we all know, multiple schedules. So now you can upload them all as well, up to 20 documents at a time. Editor, a couple of key changes here, or enhancements, I should say. There's no fundamentally, editor is still editor, but I'll talk about how times will be changing over the next couple of weeks around that. But editor, we've introduced a review and reject changes specifically with the word cutting transformation that some of you might be across. And then I'll demonstrate that for you. And also there's an export to PowerPoint. Now this is currently in beta testing, so it's not enabled on most environments. If you do want access to it and you haven't got access to it already, please let us know. Next up, projects and drafts. So these are brand new tabs that you would see in the top of the panel on the left hand side of your menu panel inside AutogenAI. First up, you've got projects, and I will explain what projects are, but it's a great way of being able to structure a project or to manage your project if you're a bid pursuit manager, or even if you're just trying to organize your own thoughts or your own writing for your own personal purposes. Really great way of like doing that sort of organization. Drafts exist within projects, but they also exist outside projects. But what drafts are basically editor. So a draft window is exactly like an editor window, except that you can label them. And therefore, drafts will eventually supersede our editor window, but everything that you could do in editor, you can do in drafts. Projects specific inputs are also now included, and actually as of earlier this week, also draft specific inputs will also be included as well. So I'll show you all of that. So that's very exciting. So you would have noticed when you logged in today, if you refresh your browser, you would have noticed that there's no more the inputs tab at the at the bottom of the panel anymore, and that's because it's been incorporated in drafts and projects. Review. This is a new tab that was introduced a few months ago. We've introduced a general review capability as well as a bid specific review capability. So exciting times. Did I actually answer the question that I'm trying to respond to in this particular tender? So great way of doing self-review before it goes up to, you know, executive reviews or leadership reviews or whichever levels you talk about, whether bronze, silver, gold, silver, pink, you know, pink, green, etc. Then we've got document library enhancements now, the ability to create secure library groups so that you can actually lock down a library group for access to only certain people. We've also had some improvements around table parsing as well. So when you are processing Excel spreadsheets, particularly numbers in cells in Excel spreadsheets, so like statistics, you might have like spreadsheets full of stats or financials. You can now it's better at being able to parse and pull out those numbers as well. Other things, new look and feel, as most of you hopefully would have experienced if you've logged into AutogenAI in the last couple of months. The tabs that we are loving, you know, that we know and love, moved from being at the top to being on the left-hand side into that left-hand panel itself. And as of this morning, the inputs is no longer there either because that's been moved into drafts and projects. And also help. So we've got some like additional links as well in the help and also enhanced outputs. So you'll notice that the outputs that you're getting are better structured, or in the case of something like Research Assistant, they're going to be more comprehensive or they're going to be more succinct, depending on what we're going for and what information we're asking the system for. So lots of really exciting new features, and I'm going to jump into AutogenAI right now and show you most of these. So starting with extract, because there's a lot of new things inside extract. First up, the ability to load multiple documents. It's as straightforward as you know and love and are familiar with already. Remember, any documents that are uploaded into extract are not stored permanently. They're really only stored here for the purposes of being able to do the summaries or the extractions. And then these documents are no longer going to be active after, you know, a period of time, but they're not stored permanently. And you can always delete them from here as well. So unlike the document library, which, you know, most people would be familiar with, where these documents are documents that are stored permanently to be able to be used for writing and creating content. So in extract, I pull my documents just using the browse or the drag and drop. Pretty much you can pull any documents. There are also file types that are beyond the file types that are written here as well. So like Excel and other file types as well that you can bring in. I pulled in 3 different documents here. This is from a tender document from a few years ago, as well as a couple of their addenda. And as you can see here, you've got the summarize. You've got 3 tabs now: summarize, extract, and shred. Summarize and shred are new. So looking at summarize, you've got 2 pages. That's a new introduction, 1 page, half page, and paragraph. If I were to click 2 pages, it's now going to go off and generate me about 1,000 words or so of content, summarizing all of the content within my documents. Now, the initial document is about 87 pages, and then you've got like a couple of other addendas added to that as well. You'll notice as it's processing, it's actually giving you this kind of like, you know, it gives you this in stream, I suppose you can think about it, so that it gives you an idea as to like how far along it is in the processing. Now, while that's happening, I'm just going to jump over into extract commissioner's priorities, which is one of commissioner's priorities was a standard functionality from before under extract. What you will now notice is that all of those buttons, as you do any of those extractions, will now have enhanced outputs. So you'll notice that they're much better sort of labeled and headlined. And so it makes it a little bit easier. And in some cases, also a lot more succinct and more targeted to pulling out succinct or most important information from your documents as well. So on that front, you know, a better sort of like outputting and structuring that you'll see in any extracts or commissioner's priorities that you've done. So just flicking over into my summary, it'll take probably another couple of seconds. But on that, remember there was this little history button over here in the top right-hand corner. So if you needed to, if you've already done something like this before, you can always go into history and have a look at something that was prepared earlier. Now, mine has just come back. It's about 1,300 words. And you can see here, it's basically giving me a nice summary of what's happening. So particularly supporting that qualification process. When you've got an incoming tender, that could be hundreds of pages. When you combine all of the documents together, it's really rare that you've got multiple people with the time to be able to sit there and read all of the documents. So this really supports us being able to quickly summarize the content and then having the summary basically distributed to all of the people making the decision about the qualification of a tender. So whether or not it's extracting the commissioner's priorities, which pulls out the requirements, or doing something like a 2-page or a 1-page summary, it will support that process. Now, flicking back into the little doors, and you would have noticed that for those who haven't been in extract for a little while, you get these little doors to go in and out. So going back out into the home page of extract, I'm going to go over to shred now. And shred is just a one button. And effectively what it does, it's not a term that we're necessarily familiar with here in Australia, but what shred does is pull out key requirements, particularly any clauses in the document that have the words will, should, shall, must, or any of the nots. So must not, shall not, etc., as well as things like is responsible for. So there are other terms that will be introduced over time as well as a little bit more flexibility in the terminology that you would be pulling. So on that note, let me just show you one that I have created beforehand, because as soon as you click on shred, so I'll click that on that. After a few seconds, you'll notice that it'll download into your downloads. It actually produces it as an Excel spreadsheet. So it exports as that. So this is what the Excel spreadsheet looks like. I've applied a little bit of a filter to the keywords and the content. So a little trick that you can do, and if you go down to keywords, filter, and you uncheck blanks, you can now see just the clauses that have the wills, will nots, must nots. So a massive time saver, particularly for contracting, and for obviously understanding, what are highest priority versus lower priority requirements that have been stipulated in the tender document. So that is shredding. As I said, this is a very new functionality, and that you'll start to see small enhancements to this as well over time, over the next coming weeks. So hopefully you'll join us for next quarter, and then we'll be able to show you some of those enhancements as well. So that's extract. Lots of really cool stuff in extracts. Now, moving on, I'm going to introduce you to one of the brand new features, and that's drafts. Now, what is drafts? As I said in my intro, drafts is basically editor. But now, instead of just having the one editor window, which you know and love, and it's still there if you wanted to use it, you can actually create, by clicking the plus document, multiple editor windows. And so in this case, I can go and say, this is my new draft. So this is my new version. And I can effectively use it exactly the way that I would use any other editor window, except now I can put a little subtitle so that it makes it a bit easier for me to understand what I'm doing in that particular part of the in that particular part. my writing. So I go and paste, say this is a question that came out of that tender document that I was extracting. This is around recruitment and training. And obviously this is something that we do here at AutogenAI. So I was like, okay, how would we respond particularly to this question? So highlighting that entire question, you've got your nifty transformations here at the top. Remember, you can always click on the little question mark in the middle, and that will bring up our list of transformations as well. But if we go and click into expand, which is what is our main writer inside AutogenAI, I'm going to go into expand, say that I want to expand out. I want to answer this question. So I've just copied the question as it is straight out of the document. I'm just going to say, using just the documents in my library AI, give me 500 words. I'm going to generate the output. Now, this will take a couple of seconds, but effectively, as you can see now, expansion or answering a question has never been easier. So you don't even have to rephrase it if you don't want to. Obviously, if I wanted to put it in a little bit more context, I would have rewritten it as, how would AutogenAI recruit, just so that I would actually have, so that it knows that it's AutogenAI responding. But, I can always infuse that a little bit later on, or use the we will to update that information. But as you can see here, it's pulling in content from various places. Obviously, we're a UK-based company, so it's making references to England, Scotland, and Wales. But you can see here it's where the references are that it's pulling out. So that's a nice little trick for those who aren't familiar with being able to get a shortcut to answering the question. Now, this question is probably about like 70% of the way there, in that it's your basic content, but it doesn't have the sparkle. It doesn't have the thing that makes it that makes it a winning response. There are a few different things that we could do to make this a winning response at this point, obviously. And most of these have not changed as far as main functionality, but you will notice that under incorporate, you've got all of the inputs. But the question is, where did inputs go? Inputs is now no longer its own tab. It is now being incorporated into drafts. And so you can now have a look through the little toggle here in the top right-hand corner. Now, I'm going to go and show that a little bit later on, but as I said, there are a few different things that you can now do. One of the enhancements is that with the word cutting, which is the ability to remove things like adverbs, adjectives, or remove, this is really about minimizing the number of characters that you use. So say, for example, I just asked to remove adverbs with just those 2 paragraphs. As it does that, you now have the ability to keep or reject. So you can say, I want to keep this word, or I want to, allow it to reject the word, because that's what it's basically pulled out. So as I move through, I can go, you know what, I'm going to keep this one. This word is important for me, so I'm going to keep just by clicking it. This word is important, and then I can then replace what I've got with that. So those are the editor updates that we've got. Now, once we've got our content and we're happy with our content, now we're going to move swiftly into review. Review in the next couple of weeks will be embedded inside editor, so that you don't have to be going into a separate tab. At the moment, though, it's in a separate tab, but as I said, over the next coming weeks, it's going to actually be embedded inside drafts. Now, I've just gone and I've had one that I did a little bit earlier on, and this is the response that I wrote in my review. You can do 2 different types of review: a general review or a bid specific criteria review. If I go into the bid specific criteria review, this is where I can actually put the question as it is. So again, I copy the question as it is in here. And then I go and copy in some tender requirements that I think align with that question. Now, the tender requirements I put in are to do with accreditation. And I happen to know that the way that I've written this question, or the way that I've written the response, doesn't have very much to do with accreditation in this. So this is a good way for me to sense check that whether what I've written is actually going to meet the brief. Am I answering the question? Am I giving a well-rounded response? So I go in here, I go and highlight my response that I've written, and I ask it to evaluate the selection. And this is going to take about a minute to run, but as it's running through, it's effectively going to run through and then give me back feedback specific to different bits that I've written in my response. Um, Yes. So while that's happening, I'm just going to pause there for a second and oh, it's come back quite quickly. But as you can see here, this is the feedback that we've got really specifically. So our organization is dedicated to recruiting, etc. And the feedback is consider elaborating on how the organization ensures compliance with the national standards of disability services, because that was one of those tender requirements that I had, particularly around the accreditation. Also down here, we talk about frontline staff and appropriate skills. And in here it says incorporate details regarding how your organization ensures the protection of job seekers' personal and sensitive data. So it's giving you that guidance based off of what you've written in the question as well as in the tender requirements. So lots of really good suggestions there. Now, the other type of feedback that you can get is by using general criteria, and that's through 5 different categories, evidencing robustness, innovation, approach and methodology, and spelling and grammar. So clicking on that, it basically gives you an idea for innovation. Are you pushing the envelope enough as far as, innovation or technology innovation in particular? Approach and methodology. Are there any gaps in the approach or the methodology that you've proposed in the response? Evidencing. Have you made a statement, but it's not going to be as strong if you don't actually give a citation or you don't give it back up or you don't specify a case study? Spelling and grammar is always going to be perfect if you use AutogenAI to write from scratch. However, it's a good way of sense checking, that you've got everything in line, especially when you're infusing your own writing in between, the automatically generated content as well. And then robustness is looking at overall robustness of the content. So evidencing here, you'll notice is a lot of feedback around my evidencing. I've made a lot of statements that are unsubstantiated according to this objective review that has come back, which is really great for me because then I can say before this goes off to an executive to go and review, I can actually have a look at what's in here. So I can say our recruitment strategy is designed to attract the best talent. Consider providing evidence of successful instances. So give me a case study, effectively, is what it's saying. And you can see lots of other feedback around evidencing, and further down, some more feedback around innovation, specifically. Consider integrating digital learning platforms, which we are going to be talking about in just a few minutes, actually, today. Now, as soon as you've actually implemented any of these, so as you go down your checklist and go like, okay, this is a good one, this is not a good suggestion, not a good suggestion, you can effectively say, not a good suggestion, delete it, good suggestion, complete it. And once you complete something, it basically says that you've actually completed that. So it's a bit more of a task list to just say that you've completed things as you work through. Now, when review is embedded inside drafts, you'll start noticing that you'll have more options with reviewing as well. There'll be formal review capabilities, commenting capabilities. You'll be able to review and action your review feedback directly in the content that you're writing. So that's all in the coming up soon, which Darcy's going to take you through in a couple of minutes. So lots of really great stuff. Review is a new tab, which is very exciting. Please feel free to jump in there, have a go, try it out yourself. You'll notice also, to extend that conversation that we had about how research is really now extending beyond, you can get more succinct responses or you can get more comprehensive responses. It really comes down to now, what is the question asking? And it's going to try to give you the best answer possible and the best length of answer possible as well. So as we can see here, no longer is it limited to that one kind of 100-word limit. We now can have much more content as well. Now, before I end off today, I'm going to go up into projects and introduce the concept of projects, because you will start noticing more and more that certain tabs will start disappearing off the side here because they'll all start to be incorporated within drafts and projects. So, for example, Ideator is now going to be incorporated inside drafts, and projects also give you the ability to create drafts inside it. A project is a way of organizing your writing. So as a bid pursuit manager, I can go in, create a project, set it up, and then the entire team that I put onto this project can now see how much time is left over, look at the summary. Everyone's working off the same playbook effectively, or the same hymn book, whichever way that you want to think about it. So in this case, I've created this one project. I'm going to go and manage members. So I'm the project lead here. I'm going to go and add Darcy. I'm going to add Darcy in here. I'm going to add Darcy as a contributor so that he can start to actually write in this project. And I'm going to click confirm. And now Darcy will have access to this project. What that lets me be able to do is I can create new drafts and set them up for everyone. So one for maybe every question or part question that I want people to respond to. And then I can assign them to different people. So I can take this Q2 response and assign it to Darcy. So now Darcy, it's Darcy's job to go and update the response for this. So now everything's all working in the same place. What we can also do at this point is I can then go in and, for example, I happen to have created some differentiators by pulling this from the research assistants, an earlier research assistant query that I ran about what are AutogenAI's differentiators around training. And then I converted them into a list of win themes. If you're not familiar with how to do that, that is one of the examples that you get in the prompting guide. So I will show you where that is for those who are not sure whether who haven't seen the prompting guide before. But I'm going to take those differentiators, and now, as you can see, you've got inputs embedded inside projects as well as in drafts. That's why inputs no longer exist on its own. And this is a way for us, for me as a project lead, to basically say, this is my these are the inputs that everyone should be working on. Only these inputs. They shouldn't be trying to bake up their own inputs to be infusing into the messaging or into the writing. So now I've got the differentiators. All I did was copy and paste it, and I hit a button, and then all of a sudden they're all automatically loaded. So no more putting things in one at a time. It's just much easier process to load inputs in. And now that I've got my inputs, I can then go to say something like my Q1 response here that I've written. And so this is just a variation of the question I was working on before. And I can go into my incorporate, and now I see my differentiators. So this is about trading. So I'm going to go in here and say, tailor or modify this response that I've written to talk about tailored enablement. So it's one of the things that we love doing here at AutogenAI, is supporting our clients in this way. And as you can see, it's now all working within the project construct. And so again, a project manager or a project lead or a bid pursuit manager can now control the inputs, the messaging, all the win themes effectively is what you typically put into those inputs that everyone on the project starts to write with and infuse in. And of course, you can do the show difference to see how it's changed and what the impact of doing an incorporate is. So lots of really good stuff that I've shown you. This has been a little bit of a whirlwind that I've introduced you to. Just a couple of little reminders. Yes, in library, as I showed a little earlier, you can create secure libraries here where you can basically, again, similar to what we did in projects, control the membership of people who have access to this library. You can also, just a bit of a reminder, this was introduced before this quarter, but a good one just to point out, you can actually also go to settings and select certain folders as well if you don't want it to use the entire library or entire repository of documents that you have access to source for content. But last but not least, the little button right at the top right-hand corner, right against your login ID, is where you will now be able to access things like the prompting guide that I mentioned earlier before, FAQs, which are really great. These are overarching FAQs for AutogenAI, very, very useful. User guide, which is like our fundamentals training, and then directly to the AutogenAI Academy. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Darcy.
Awesome. What a segue, Annie. Hey, everyone. For those who haven't met me, yeah, I'm Darcy. I work with Annie with our clients to help them get the most out of the tool. And what I'm going to go through are a couple of things. Firstly, I'm going to have a look at the brand new AutogenAI Academy that Annie just showed you the button and the link for, and also some new and upcoming features. Before I jump into this, though, I just wanted to encourage everyone to put in your Q&As. We'll have some time at the end, hopefully, for some Q&As. So if you did have questions about anything from today or anything that you've been meaning to ask, now is your chance to do it. So this is the AutogenAI Academy. This is what it's going to look like. The reason that we started, or that we've put so much time and effort into creating this academy, is because we understand how different the experience of writing a bid is with using AutogenAI. So we're the only company that we know about that works in this space that's put this much investment into the academy to help you guys understand and use the tool as effectively as possible. So what is the AutogenAI Academy? Very simply, it's a learning management system. It's an LMS that you might have used before. And we host all of these different videos and tasks and tools that are going to help you to understand the tool and get the most out of it. So if I navigate to this little menu up here and go to my courses and learning plans, what I'll see are all of the e-learnings that I currently have available to me. So you can see there's an explainer about the inputs. There's the art of the possible, which is an introduction video. There's all kinds of content here. And probably the first one that you'll look at is this fundamentals course right here. So as all of you know, the fundamentals training generally happens in about 2 hours with either Annie or myself. And we've kind of put that content now onto the AutogenAI Academy for you to look at any point. So for example, if you don't remember what pure completion does, or you need help with the extraction tool or anything like that, this is your chance to find that information in a more engaging way. So we do have a team of people that we work closely with, the education team, whose job it is to create this content for you guys to use. So this is now live for everyone on the call. You should be able to see this in your own environment as well. So would encourage you to jump on and have a look at this content. And very curious to hear how everyone goes. So moving on to what's coming next. So our roadmap. And he's taken everyone through the key things, the key product updates from Q2. But I just wanted to show you some exciting updates that are coming in Q3. So the first thing is, so I guess to set the scene a little bit, each of these features we have been developing out with our customers, taking the feedback that we're receiving, prioritizing the content, the features that the most people want, and now we're building it out. So SharePoint integration, that's coming up very, very soon. It was one of the key things that our clients have been looking for in Q2. So it's not only on the roadmap, but it's in the dev environment. It's very, very close to being launched. Also, the inline transformations. We've noticed that we've had a bit of feedback that some of the buttons at the top in the editor may be a little bit confusing and you don't know which one is which. These inline transformations is designed to make it crystal clear what every single button is going to do. The answer database is designed to be a gold source repository of all of your standard responses. If you're finding that you have similar questions across different tenders that you're bidding for, and you have standard answers for those questions, this is designed to hold those answers and to give you a chance to review them when necessary and incorporate them into your responses. Again, trying to or trying to maintain AutogenAI as an end-to-end solution for building out your entire tender response. Now, formal review. This is, I think Annie touched on this a little bit earlier. The idea here is that we want to map our review tool onto your review processes. So you can see there'll be different steps. There'll be the ability to allocate who is responsible for a review and for a checking over of the content that you've created. So that's in the works. And also this document explorer, which is kind of an extension of the extract tool. to be able to give you the opportunity to ask direct questions about documents that you upload. You can ask, pull out the key requirements of this document. What are the key timelines? Semantically search the whole document, etc., etc. So that's the first half. And then a little bit later on in the quarter, this is what we're looking at. So the image read and retrieval, this is massive. This is a massive change in technology that we've jumped right on. So some of the latest large language models allow you to read and retrieve images. So this is going to be incredibly helpful for potentially past proposals that include charts or diagrams. The technology is to a point where you can get text from those diagrams explaining what those diagrams are for. So you can imagine that that's probably going to double the amount of content that you're able to upload to your document library. And not only that, you can then reverse search for those images as well. Terrific. The task management here, I think Annie touched on this a little bit. This and the matrix building as well are both in the theme of incorporating more capability into the projects tab. So your projects are now going to be a hub of task management, of building out your requirements for the tender, of breaking it down into distinct, discrete tasks, and then assigning those tasks to certain writers. And then from there, using the review cycle that we discussed before. So you can kind of see there's in the next quarter, there's going to be a bit of a shift to emphasize these projects and drafts as your one-stop shop for everything related to a particular bid. On that note, we've also got this Gamma review, which is a working title. Basically, the Gamma review is bringing the review functionality into your editor. So right now, the workflow is do your work in editor, check it in the review, bring it back to editor, vice versa, that's so on and so forth. But what we're going to be able to do very soon is have your editor working through your tender response, and then on the right-hand side or wherever it ends up, have your Gamma review there so that you can go and check parts of your tender responses as you go and get those evidenced, those sourced suggestions that Annie went through a little bit earlier. Awesome. The last one here is this source and fact checker. Again, we don't know exactly how this is going to look, but this is going to be an extension of the search capabilities to be able to search a particular sentence and determine whether or not it's backupable, it's sourceable within your document library. So in this example here, we've got this green text, for instance, is sourceable. It has backing in the document library, whereas maybe, oops, not yet. Maybe these figures here, this 500,000 followers, 2,000 professionals. Maybe there was no way of determining whether that's factually correct in the document library. So those are coming what we're aiming for in Q3 in the roadmap. So great. The last thing we have is Q&A. We have about 3 minutes by the looks of it before the end of the presentation. Annie, do we have any questions that you've seen pop up? Is there anything else that you wanted to go through? How are we looking?
No other questions in the Q&A at the moment. This is your last opportunity to ask us anything. Feel free to use the question and answer functionality to do that. But just to reiterate what Darcy was saying and to the theme of the fact that now things will you'll start noticing that tabs on the left panel will start to disappear, including the one that everybody knows and loves, the editor, but that's because everything's now part of drafts or part of projects. So like Ideator will be embedded into drafts and projects now. So you'll be able to toggle in the next few weeks, you'll be able to toggle between ideating and writing within the same window. Editor will disappear because of the fact that it's superseded by drafts. and a review, once gamma review and formal review are in place, that's going to be embedded within projects and drafts as well. So it's very exciting times over the next few weeks. So come along to the next one of these next quarter, and we'll take you through all of the new things there.
Absolutely. If there's anything else that any questions that you've had from today, feel free to get in touch with Annie, myself, or Jess on the screen. I'm sure everyone knows Jess as well. But yeah, very keen to continue the conversation.
Yes, one question, will we be sharing the presentation? Yes, we shall be. So we'll be sharing the link to this recording for all attendees and all other users, as well as the slides as well. Cool. Well,
beautiful.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm sure we will see you in a coaching session over the next few weeks.
Thanks, guys.